What's up guys, JV2017 here, and today I wanted to share my overall thoughts on the Wasteland Workshop DLC for Fallout 4. Of course, this is the second DLC for the game, and I've spent probably 5 to 10 hours so far messing around with cages, arenas, and all of the new items. So in this video, I'll share my overall thoughts on the content and whether I believe it's worth the $5 standalone price. On paper, when you look at it, Wasteland Workshop seems like a steal. At only $5, you get 100 or so items that are new to the workshop mode. Maybe they were previously in the game world, but not available to build actually in the game without modding, and we'll talk more about that in a bit because that's definitely relevant to this conversation. You get the ability to cage animals and set up arena fights, which are, for all intents and purposes, 2 new mini games to play around with at your settlements. It's hard for me to acknowledge all of that and then come out and say this is not a good DLC or something along those lines. But the problem I had with this new content is that it just wasn't very compelling. I thought I wanted to trap Deathclaws and experiment with arena battles, but these features just aren't very fleshed out. After hours of experimenting with all this new stuff, it just feels tacked on and restrained by the issues that Fallout 4 already has in the first place. Let's say, for instance, that they added some sort of training system for the animals that you catch and you could level them up, or different armor sets that you need to craft for those animals. I know that sounds very similar to something like Automatron, but overall, the nature of Wasteland Workshop felt like it needed something like that, and it didn't. It just felt uninspired and didn't really expand upon much at all in the grand scheme of things. Fundamentally, what I expect out of a DLC is to add new ways to play the game, and maybe that's expecting way too much out of a $5 DLC. That's a legitimate criticism of, where I'm coming from, but this is how I feel. It feels like this is more of a cosmetic DLC, but at the same time kind of a half-assed new content DLC. When Bethesda first revealed their content plans for this first wave of DLC packs back in February, Todd Howard said that they decided to release different sizes of DLC at different price points to offer different experiences because it had worked in the past in previous models with previous games. A lot of people were skeptical about whether or not this was a good move because, people look back at previous content for Fallout and think, all these great content packs for Fallout 3, why would they not do that again? Why are they trying something new? And I get that. Personally, I tried to keep my mind open and wait to experience these smaller packs for myself for my own opinion, but to tell you the truth, now that we've gotten through these first smaller content packs that we haven't seen before outside of, I guess, Gunrunner's Arsenal for New Vegas, I really wish they stuck with the Fallout 3 model. I would have gladly paid a higher season pass price for 4 to 5 similarly priced story-driven DLCs, kind of like what we got with Fallout 3, instead of what we got out of Automatron and Wasteland Workshop. To a fan of the franchise who's been playing since Fallout 3, I know some of you are going to hear that and be like, ugh, I played since the original Fallout, you're new to this, whatever. But I really have loved the game since Fallout 3. I played the hell out of 3 and New Vegas, and now we've got Fallout 4. Obviously, I played the hell out of this game. So really, from a fan's perspective or someone who's really passionate about the franchise, I can totally understand why it might be upsetting and why you might be disappointed by these first 2 DLC packs. I'm kind of in that same boat. I'm a little bit salty if I'm being honest, because here we are, it's April 18th, and Far Harbor is approaching, and I think that they really need to turn it around for Far Harbor. I think Far Harbor needs to be so good and knock it out of the park for people in general, the community. Some people may have loved these first two DLCs and aren't so critical, but for me personally, I'm sure other people, they really need to hit it out of the park with Far Harbor. It needs to be really, really good for people to feel good about that season pass purchase they made way earlier in the year. Circling back to Wasteland Workshop, of course, we also have the whole modding conversation, which goes something along the lines of, why should I pay $5 for this DLC when I can get these items for free with mods? And I already touched on this in a video a week or so ago, but I'll kind of summarize my thoughts again since that was before Wasteland Workshop came out. I've got a different perspective on things now. So even if PC players can find similar modding options for items that Bethesda is charging for, I still think there is a place for paid DLC. Some players don't want to hassle with installing or managing mods and don't want to have to deal with mods breaking every single time the game updates. Those are realities, and some people don't realize that because they're like, oh, I've been modding forever, I know. Well, you're not like everyone else. There are other people that don't want to hassle with that. So with Wasteland Workshop, even if there are mods out there that offer similar items, you don't have to worry about that if you go ahead and buy this DLC. And for that simple fact, I think it's more than reasonable to offer peace of mind, you know, you don't have to worry about all that modding stuff in the form of official DLC that people pay for. And if you don't want to worry about that, then I think it is worth your money. And you may be wondering, why are you defending it when you were just saying you don't like it? I think there's a real difference between, you know, saying it's legitimate, you know, DLC that might be useful or valuable to someone else, but to me, it might not be. And if you want to hear more of what I think about that subject, I've left a link to my longer video on this topic in the description below. So, what's the overall verdict on Wasteland Workshop DLC? It's disappointing in my mind for a Fallout DLC, and Bethesda tried something a little bit different here, but the value just isn't there for me because of how flimsy and difficult the new minigames are. However, if you love settlement building and enjoy spending hours upon hours creating in this game using this system, then I can absolutely see why this is a solid purchase for you, and especially on consoles where you don't have those modding options like I talked about before. Personally, I've said it many times here on the channel, I just don't enjoy settlement building all that much. It reminds me of Minecraft, and I never really liked building in Minecraft. It's a similar kind of system, and while I try to keep an open mind on new things, you could say that this DLC was doomed to fail for me from the start. From the minute it was announced, I knew I probably wouldn't like it all that much. Instead of settlement building, I'd rather just be leveling up or questing or doing literally anything else in the game that's fun, and that's why I expected more out of the mini games that weren't more of the settlement, you know, aspect. It was more kind of what I wanted, but they just weren't that great, in my opinion. They could have been a lot more fleshed out. I think it's also fair to point out that if you paid for the season pass, especially for before the price hike, I think it was $30 US before, now it's $50, then you're really getting Wasteland Workshop very cheaply. It's really valuable in that sense. You're not paying much at all, like a few dollars. So the most I would have paid standalone for this DLC was probably only $2 to $3 US because it just wasn't for me. So I've shared a lot about how I feel. I'd like to hear from you guys. Did you enjoy Wasteland Workshop as a DLC? And do you think it was worth the money that you paid for it, whether you paid for it through the season pass or by the $5 standalone? Share all of what you're thinking below. I really want to hear what you guys think. Alright guys, today I shared my review of the Wasteland Workshop DLC for Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout on my channel, so stay tuned for Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. If you learned something new, remember to hit that like button, I would really appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe for more survival mode coverage, Wasteland Workshop DLC, and general tips and tricks videos. Talk to you guys next time, peace.